All right. Well, hello, everyone. Grab a cozy drink, maybe even a glass of wine, and join us here at the soon to be named book club. We're all here today. Oh, look at that.
Woo!
I don't think we've been all here for the whole book yet.
Right.
Yes, it's been
I've been very sad that I've been missing out, so I'm happy to be here today.
yes, it's definitely been a busy month for everyone. That's for sure. Lots of adventure.
Still been reading though. Still
I
been
know.
reading.
I know. We've been keeping up reading even with the adventures, so that's been good. We did take a break last week though, so we're gonna jump right into it. As usual, we have our heart illustrations here with us today. We have book club mom, and we have decal. So far we've been continuing reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Um, we're about halfway through now that we've read that section. I'm trying to think. Basically, the last section, like we've been following this mysterious things happening. We're following a book club that is all about their murder mysteries, basically, or real life murders or serial killers, for that matter. And the best way to sum this whole first section, or her first, the other sections up, is Patricia's looking for some excitement, and she's certainly getting it.
Oh yeah.
So just to bring us up all to speed, last section, the biggest thing was the rats and Miss Mary, which was ugh, just that was way too descriptive.
I struggled reading that part. I was squirming.
Oh yeah,
They did
and
really
then
good with all the gory scenes, like the ear and the rats, and
no, I know, just the description of the rats, I was like,
Ugh.
my goodness,
And
why?
they just kept coming.
I literally can't picture how many of them there were.
Right,
And
it
I
was
was so sad when they attacked the dog too. I can't remember his name, but
ragtag.
Ragtag. And I can't remember whether or not he survived, actually, now that I think about it. Did
Oh,
he not?
I thought he
He
did
did?
survive. Mm-hmm.
I don't think he said.
There was a little blurb right when she got home from the hospital that Ragtag was just kind of lying there. He said it, he was lying there like a corpse, and I go, oh boy. But then she took him to the vet and paid whatever money because, he's family. And that was kind of it. So we're assuming he's still alive, even though in this section he wasn't even mentioned either, I realize. Um, and then we end that section with them traveling out to the 6 Mile area, Patricia and Kitty, and then we find out that children are going missing, or like missing at weird times, and they're not being normal kids anymore when that happens. And we get this mysterious figure called Boo Daddy.
Ugh. The
Very,
name just like makes your skin crawl, and
I
I
know.
don't like it.
Grady Hendrix has been phenomenal with too much description.
Good writer.
Yeah.
So I know Heart Illustrations and Decal haven't been able to be here the last couple times. What have you guys been thinking about the book so far? How are you enjoying it? Is it a good wild ride or a bad one?
Definitely good. I actually really like this book. I think it really is just a wild ride, especially if you're just like kind of like a stay-at-home mom. Like I can't imagine any of this actually happening. But like so many unfortunate things has happened to this poor lady, Patricia. It's like, how does it keep happening? Like her life went from being just totally normal, and then she was like, I wish we lived basically next to like a serial killer, and then boom, she got it right. Just one of those things you speak into existence and then you regret it. So
She accidentally manifested that.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I agree with Decal. I like it. I really enjoyed reading it. It's like you said, it's the good type of wild ride. And it does kind of spook you a little bit, like especially kind of me right now being way out in the middle of nowhere and like reading until late hours of the night and it's like pitch black and I'm one of very few people out here. It's like, oh man, this is giving me the heebie-jeebies. So like, yeah, it's a good read. I've really been enjoying it a lot. And it's been sad to like read these parts and be like, oh man, I can't wait to see what we talk about in book club with it. And then I haven't been able to make it. So I'm excited. Yeah, it's a good read.
Well, good. Yeah, no, I remember I was telling you that literally just 5 minutes ago that I also have been reading out at night, and I've been doing it with another book, and it was perfectly fine, and it was all nice. And then I did it this past Sunday for this upcoming section, and then all of a sudden I started hearing way more things around me than I needed to, and I'm like, is someone? I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, is someone back here with me? I'm like, knock it off.
James Harris is stalking you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Accidentally manifested through book club.
Seriously.
So far, who has been your favorite character, or maybe like a top three if your favorite is too hard?
I'm gonna say I think I'm gonna have to go with top three because I don't think I can decide on a favorite character. I like Kitty a lot because I just think she's really funny and I feel like she kind of has the most unique story out of all of the housewives because I don't know if I picked up on this correctly either, but like she lives on a farm, right? Like her and her husband Horse.
Kind
It's
of.
like a dilapidated mansion, Southern,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Southern mansion type vibe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
they
think I don't think they have any animals, but I think they could if
Right.
they have the land that they could if they
Right.
wanted to, I think.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought because I feel like a lot of these other like Patricia and like a lot of the other housewives are like in the nicer part of town maybe or like in their own little gated community. But I also just think that like Kitty's perspective as a character is really funny and I feel like she kind of calls out the other women when they're being ridiculous and like I don't remember which one it is who's like very very religious.
Slick.
But Slick, yes. And just like Kitty calls her out and Kitty's called out Grace. And so I feel like Kitty's just a really entertaining character. And I also like Patricia a lot. I don't know. I mean, some of this decisions she does, I'm like, what? It's kind of stupid, but like, I think she's a cool character. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think Patricia's kids are funny, mostly Blue, right?
The
Yeah.
boy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just hilarious. And yeah. I think those are my top three.
Yeah, I like Patricia. Everyone hates James Harris, but obviously he's what makes this book interesting, so I feel like I have to say him.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Grace, I really like her. So
Mrs. Green or Grace?
sorry, Green.
Okay.
Mrs. Green, my bad. I was
Yeah,
gonna make
that's cool.
Yeah, Mrs. Green is definitely
Yeah.
a wholesome character overall, but also kind of like the
Conscience.
yeah.
She's
Yeah,
like the only one that can keep it together when everything is falling apart. So
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you, Devin. I like those three characters as well. I think they're not that I like them. I think they're very interesting and they're adding a lot to the book, of course, because good, bad, or indifferent, they all, are playing pivotal roles in what's going to happen. So
that's true. Yeah.
what about you, Ian?
Well, I mean, I was gonna also say that Mrs. Green is also the what's the word I want to say? It's his way to also write in like social commentary.
Right.
Which is
She's
a
the
very
she's the racial she represents the racial part of this book, right? She's a African American woman who's bringing these white women into the 21st century, right? In the sense that she's reminding them that nobody cares about these black kids because they're black and they live in the 6 Mile area. The police don't care. They don't come. It's not a priority. And we need to do something about this. And so, luckily, Patricia is a white woman who's interested in doing something about it. And she's going to make a difference.
That was actually one of my favorite scenes to read, was the first time that Patricia and Kitty went to 6 Mile. And I know it wasn't in this section, but I just kind of loved it, how like the neighborhood kids were like, who are you and what the heck are you doing here? Like, you don't belong here. Like, this is not, but it wasn't in like a necessarily threatening way, because like as soon as Mrs. Green came out, like she kind of called them off. So I really like the way that, I feel like it's a good portrayal of like how they have a really tight knit community, and they care for each other that much. And so I kind of like that Mrs. Green and all those kids like put Kitty and Patricia in their place when they just like rolled up into this neighborhood that like they're not from, and not, necessarily like welcomed into, because, there's a stranger, and he's he, whether that being James Harris or anyone else, they're preying on the children. And yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I got a little rambly there with that one.
That's fine. For life of
Back to the
being a
book.
mom. God. Anyway. Favorite characters. I mean, Patricia, of course, is the main focus, so you gotta love the main character at least. At least the way she's being written is it's relatable on some level, and also just kind of like a um like, I mean, she's the main look into everything. So I gotta give it to Patricia. But I don't fully identify with Grace, but there's definitely just the like luxury aspect that she carries herself with, and I'm like, maybe one day. Like the best thing was the parties that she threw and everything like that, and I'm like, yeah, one day.
Okay.
One day.
That's
I know. I
No,
love
and
that description of that party.
I like the fact that Grace is, she basically is very typical of what you think of a Southern woman, right? She, and there was at one point on page 155 when they talked about Grace not wanting to stop cleaning, and she says, why do we pretend what we do is nothing? Why do you pretend what we do is nothing? She asked that of Patricia, right? Because Grace's answer to every stressful situation is to clean something, right? And so, again, it goes to show you that everyone, of course, is raised differently, but Grace, and the way she handles stress is by cleaning, because when she cleans things up, she has physical evidence that things are right in her world, right? And so it's a really interesting way of handling your stress and your problems. And yeah, she's a fascinating character as well. I mean, all these women are.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So I guess we're jumping right into this section. So we start off I think we start off in the middle of a section this time, right? We didn't start at the beginning of one. Yeah, we started off more in the middle of a section. So yeah, so we started off in the middle of The Stranger Beside Me, which of course there's a little shout out to that book at the end of this section, which I thought was cute. So we end off last section with the children are missing, and then we carry on into the discussion, or no, carry on into Patricia doing her own little due diligence to see what James Harris's license plate is, because she had the little note from Mrs. Green of the half one that, or half a license plate that she caught with a Texas license plate. Um, and then, so she matched it up with Grace's notes, and it matched pretty well.
Knew it.
You're right. And so Patricia, you see her kind of connecting the dots. I feel like, I don't know if she's connected the dots on, someone on top of her house and James Harris just shows up, but you never know, I guess. Don't think she's connected that dot yet. If it is
was
a
him.
dot. But
I think it was him.
I would be, at this point, I'd be surprised if it wasn't from what we read.
I mean, who else could it have been, really?
True. So Grace, of course, we get the whole commentary of like she's making it all up and she just needs to calm down, and the whole comment about clean your curtains.
Yeah.
I was like, Grace, no, that doesn't calm me down.
I don't want to clean my curtains right now.
I don't want to clean anything as it is. And so we get into this whole like commentary of course, even with like he's set up a good background for these women also with their books that they're reading in their book club. So now she's thinking in terms of these books, and it's always the same storyline of you would never have guessed it until it's too late, basically. And so now she's, at the beginning of this section, she kind of starts spiraling of like, how well do we know anyone? And I was like, oh gosh, pull it in, Patricia. You'll be
Feel
all right.
it in. You're gonna be okay.
You're gonna be okay. So we end the first chapter with her leaving to go see Destiny. And so as we get into this whole section, Destiny is missing. So she goes to 6 Mile. She goes to Destiny's, or I think Wanda Taylor, right? Yeah, Wanda Taylor's house is Wanda's the mom. And so her and Miss Green go over to the house. They realize that Destiny is missing. Of course, we get another social commentary about how the police response is crap. In those
Not
areas.
3 minutes like it is where Patricia lives.
Right. Not in the old village, 3 minutes, which, anywhere you live, you can identify with that. Especially if you're in a suburban place. And then, so we see that Patricia just takes it into her own hands, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go find her. Like, let's do this. So she's on her own. I think Miss Green, that was that one where Miss Green just bluntly locks the door behind her, right, as she steps out. Yeah,
I don't blame her.
I was like, okay. I was like, wow.
Thing, so
Fair enough.
You're on your own if you want to go after this crazy dude that's preying on our children.
Right. And so Patricia, we get just, I love how descriptive he is. Like I love descriptions in general in books, but not all the time do I get like thrown into the story with descriptions. But geez, Grady Hendrix just knows what he's doing. So, you feel like you're in the woods with her. You're, feeling all of the anxiety, all of the, spookiness. And then she bumps into a van, James Harris's van. And so
that's creepy.
Yeah, that was creepy too. So she thinks no one's in the van. She's gonna open the door and see what is there. And James Harris has a bug-like contraption in his mouth, according to how she described it. I think she described it at one point as a cockroach. I was like,
yep.
Well, it's so funny because like when we first started reading this book, I forgot that like it was about vampires, which is very like stupid of me because the title is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And I forgot that it was about vampires. So when like James Harris was like talking about like being bit as a child, I'm like, oh my God, he's a werewolf. And like he can't go out in the sunlight. And then I think it was after the second section we read, I like reread the inside cover jacket summary, and I was like, Sophia, you're such an idiot. Like, he's a vampire, not a werewolf. But also, like, that just threw me for a loop because I was expecting like vampire like fangs, not some like creepy bug like appendage retractable antenna thing. So when I started reading that, I was like, what?
Right.
Ew.
And just the
Gross.
whole description about how the jaw was like detached and all this other stuff. I'm like, stop.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And blood all over his beard. That was the final description of James Harris in that situation. I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, great writing because it elicited a very visceral reaction from me. But like, ooh.
Right. So basically James Harris is the, maybe there might be more, but the vampire at the moment. We're just gonna say
Oh,
that.
you think there's more?
I mean, you never know. I mean, we haven't really met any other characters, but just
Okay.
piggybacking off of our other conversations, there was I forgot who made the comment, but someone basically said that James Harris might not be the vampire, but he might be part of something. So I'm just, there might be
A
more.
really good point. I
But
wasn't even thinking that.
so yeah, so we know. So how do we feel that, like, I was gonna preface that, but it doesn't really matter. So how do we feel that basically the character that we had a hunch about being the vampire is actually the vampire? Like, are we disappointed in that? Are we fine with that, with how the book's being written? Like, because it doesn't really, it's not like a huge spoiler on some level. Like, we still have a whole half of the book, so clearly more stuff happens. But how do we all feel?
No, I think it's kind of like not like a Shakespeare book where it's like they'll tell you what happens in the beginning, right? And you're like, all right, I already know what the hell's gonna happen. But
Thanks for the
you just don't
thanks for
know
the
how
Cliff
it
Notes
all goes
version of the rest of your story.
yeah, pretty much. So it's kind of like, well, that's kind of obvious at this point, and it's just like they set him up to be that character, which you already expect. So, but I think there's going to be more to unexpect right now, or there's going to be a lot more backstory that it's still like
Right.
you still can't fathom it, no matter which way you go around it, I guess.
Right. And the fact that Miss Mary recognized him, right, from another
Right.
time. And again, so now you're piecing, oh, so he lived as a different character in a different time frame. So yeah, darn, he must be a vampire if he's like a whatever, eternal type, right? He shows up, 100 years ago or whatever it was, 70 years ago, and here he is back, 70 years later. So
Yeah,
as a
I
young
definitely think sorry. I definitely think there's that connection between him and Miss Mary for sure. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what it is.
But
Well, do
and
we-
again, it's the same storyline, just 100 years later, though. So it's kind of like
That was
What the hell?
super foreshadowing, yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, and also like the same family.
yes,
So what's that all about, you know?
yeah.
like I was wondering, I was like, do you think a lot of people leave this little town? Because it makes it sound like nobody really does.
Yeah.
Well, remember, I think the same family is just by chance because remember, he grew up in a different town. Miss Mary was not I don't even think in South Carolina.
Right.
Oh.
That's right.
Because remember, all that stuff happened at her childhood home,
Mhm.
and that's why no one ate the peaches.
That's
That
right.
was the big thing there. So she
Mhm.
moved when she started declining
Yes.
in health.
Yeah.
So I think it's just by chance and his hopefully unluckiness because we don't know where the picture is. We've now gone a whole almost section and there's been no mention. No one found it. Like, are we gonna get it back? Do we think we're gonna
I
see
really
it again?
hope so.
Right.
What if it got ruined with the rat situation?
Right.
Or
That's
don't you
what I
think
was thinking too.
it was like Miss Mary has it? It was in her possession, right? Don't you think that she, I don't know, maybe it's in all of her hospital stuff that they never went through. They brought it home and they
Yeah.
threw it in a closet and forgot about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I didn't even think
All of
about that.
her personal, or at the funeral home. You know what I'm saying? I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out where it could have gone, because yeah, that room over the garage was totally destroyed by what happened with the rats. So
Right.
yeah.
I think Patricia's definitely going to come across it again somehow. The picture. I mean, she
Yeah.
has to.
Yeah. It's going to be her proof that James Harris is a vampire, right?
Yeah, because he is going to be the same person in that
Right.
photo.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go with that if we find the picture, even in the next section. Like we don't, anything can happen at this point. Um,
Right.
so like I said, we saw James with the little girl,
Mhm.
Destiny, and so she of course is stunned. She, right, clap on, clap off.
I'm gonna move over here so that um, the light sensor stays on.
That's funny.
Sorry, resume.
No, you're fine. Um, so yeah, she's basically running, she realizes that James Harris is starting to claw at her or trying to get her at least or go after her. And so she makes it, she runs into a cop, she gets into the car, they go back to the house, and somehow Destiny is in the bedroom. And they couldn't find the van, they couldn't find James Harris. That was crazy. I'm like, how did the van just disappear like that?
How? Because if he's a vampire, yeah, maybe he can move fast, but how the
Right,
heck did he get out of there in his van with nobody seeing him?
right. And then okay, the weirdest I even put a question mark next to it in my notes. I'm like, and then Carter shows up out of nowhere. I was like, what?
Mhm.
But I did forget that she did leave a note for everyone at the house saying where she was. So Carter got some bounty points, especially that rest of the night because he didn't gaslight her or anything, and cuddled her at night to which she woke up I guess a couple times from nightmares, and he was there still holding her. So like, good for Carter. And then the next chapter, Carter just turns back into his POS.
Sure.
God, men. Just.
Straight up
Ugh.
men of these books.
I know. Wait, I didn't hear it. What was the full thing you said? Sorry.
I said straight up just men in all of these books.
Straight up.
Honestly, freaking whatever the heck his name was in Lost Apothecary gave me a headache. Carter isn't doing much better.
Wasn't his name James? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
was
think it
James.
was James. Yeah.
We're getting a consistent James.
Don't be friends with the James.
Don't be friends with the James. Watch out for Jameses.
Watch out for the Jameses.
That's actually pretty funny. I have a story that we won't be sharing over this. But anyway. But anywho. So we get to the next morning, and she of course is spooked. She has her like little PTSD moments, and Mrs. Green calls her, and we find out that Destiny is taken away by Child Protective Services,
Mhm.
which of course they knew, but in your own realm of like the old village-esque thing, you would never think that would happen, of course. And so
Yeah,
the
in
reader
her little
plus
bubble.
everyone's getting their own taste of reality here. Um, and then oh, and then yeah. So then we get to dinner, and of course Patricia's like, Carter, did you call about the child? Are we figuring that out? Of course, Carter is like, no, we have to play the game. I can't just do that. I'm like, Carter, for the love
Then
of
why did you promise that you could do it?
right. I'm like, for the
Like,
love
don't make the promise if you know you're not going to do it, because obviously he's been gunning for this promotion for a while. So he already knew, like, pursuing this with Destiny and like the social workers and stuff, like he already had to have known that there wasn't going to be anything he could do. So he was basically just saying that he was going to do it for Patricia, just to like calm her down in the moment, and then totally didn't follow up on it. So annoying.
right. And then of course we get James coming to the house, which I first of all, I'm like, Carter, go answer the door. I'm like, why are you sending your wife who's already been spooked? Like, what?
By the same man.
By the same man. And like we all know who it is. And so that I really enjoyed that interaction, that little like hardball that they both were playing. And honestly, this might be one of my favorite quotes in the whole book so far. If not, might win. It was Patricia like basically saying how she's gonna have to put on a face and all this other stuff, and he's trying to get all this information, and then she just goes, clearly he had never been to a cocktail party in the old village before. And I was like, yes, all your training
Go, girl.
has come to this. And then Carter took a giant shit at the table. I'm like, Carter, be on the same page as your wife. I'm like, what is going on, man? So, yeah, just
Yeah, he's so annoying.
yeah, just that quick summary. You know, Carter basically calls out Patricia for calling the cops on James Harris, and James Harris, you know,
In front
basically
of
now has the
kids.
upper hand. Sorry, what?
I said, yeah, in front of the kids.
In front of the kid, which of course
Yeah.
Blue's gonna be like, what's going on? Like,
Oh, I could do that to him, yeah.
right. And so, um, yeah, and so now she's I just read one of my notes. Whoops. And so now she, you know, is doing her own research about vampires and realizes that they just read Dracula and found her mistake that she's invited James Harris in, and now he has full like control of that realm.
Mhm.
And basically she goes, that ending of that chapter was just her going and getting a bunch of vampire books, which I thought was so funny. And then we end off her talking to her book club, and basically, you know, she pleads her case. They're talking about the book that the section's named after, which is the Jeffrey Dahmer Ayn Rand book. So like, you know, hidden in
Oh,
plain sight.
it's Ted Bundy and
Oh,
Rule.
Ted Bundy. Yeah, sorry. Ted Bundy and Rule. Thank you. I'm like,
You're welcome.
yeah, yeah. And so, you know, if it talks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. Yeah.
I like
So I think we've only got a little bit left, but we're gonna have to end this live real quick, and then we'll come back and then just finish it up real quick with everything for everyone. So just give us
Okay.
1 second. And
Intermission.
yes, a quick intermission. All right. Well, that was a quick little intermission. But we're back.
Here we are.
Here we are. Look at that. So right. So we ended this whole section off with section and like section in the book even. So we ended this whole section off with her at book club talking to, you know, her friends basically being like, I'm not crazy. I saw what I saw. I was a little worried there for Patricia for a second. I was like, ooh, this is a tough crowd. I'm like, what is going on? And thankfully, Kitty was the first one to be like, okay, we have to trust her. Like, come on.
I think it also helps that Kitty was with her the first time Patricia went to 6 Mile. So Kitty like can't deny it. She can't deny
Right.
what she saw with her own 2 eyes and heard when she went with Patricia to 6 Mile.
Yeah. No, that's true. So then, of course, the whole book club kind of rallies around it. Grace storms off, But in a great turn of events at the very, very end, Grace calls Patricia and is like, guess what? I found the van. And Patricia's like, what? And she goes, I needed to do my own digging as I do. And, you know, I remember in one of our books, who was it that she said hid the van in a storage unit? And so she called, was it oh, God, it's right at the end.
Yep. Silence of the Lamb.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs. I'm like, I knew it was a
Mhm.
one of the book titles that was made into a big motion picture. But so she did her own digging into the only storage place in the whole area, and look at that. James Harris has a storage unit that the van
Mhm.
is in. And that's how we end. And our next section is called Psycho. So,
Yeah.
so how do we feel about all our characters? Were we worried about Patricia there for a second? You know, how are we feeling after all that?
Tense.
Yeah. He's really safe, you know, so.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm definitely where do we think we're going next? What's gonna happen? And um I guess just to preface it, because I did, of course, I had to look ahead to see what we were reading to. We do hit a section that, like, we finished this next section in like the next 30 pages, and that, like, the psycho section, and then we jump 3 years into the next one, which we'll be reading a little bit into. So what do we think is going to happen in the next, 30 pages, and then the start in the next 3 years? That's going to be interesting.
Wow. I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
So it's gotta be like the Salem witch trials for James. And the aftermath.
I don't know. I find like I'm glad that I'm glad that like all the other ladies have sort of like rallied around Patricia and they all believe her, or at least believe her to a point where they can like get a really good case going. But if we only have 30 pages before we time jump to 3 years in the future, I mean, 30 pages is not a lot. I mean, I don't know if they're going to catch James Harris in 30 pages. So then what, like, that's my prediction for that at least. So then what happens if they jump 3 years later? Isn't like Patricia's kids, like, I don't remember the oldest name, but isn't she like a sophomore or something? So does that mean that like Patricia's oldest kid's going to be off at college when they come back? Like 3 years is a lot of time when you're like a housewife and you have like younger kids, I feel like.
Mhm.
Oh, right. I mean, 3 years for any,
3 years for
child
anything.
is well, yeah, for anyone really, but for children especially, like your whole life shift in 3 years, more than adults sometimes. So
I wonder if like they're not even gonna catch James Harris in the next 30 pages and then it'll just like go stagnant and then in the next 3 years something will happen, or like what if some big blow up thing happens in the next 30 pages and then 3 years later is the fallout from that. But we wouldn't even still be close to the end of the book by the time we finish next week's section, right? So like
no.
I feel like the big blow up is not going to happen before this 3 year jump.
Right. I mean, I feel so, of course they're getting close. And so with all this evidence, they're going to be right on his tail. And I'm worried about that it might there's like two things that I feel like might happen if we're jumping 3 years and if James Harris is still going to be around. Like James Harris could be like done in the next 30 pages and in 3 years something else weird happens. Like it could
Oh.
be a whole nother like more of them come, or he does have like a little pack or family or whatever. But I also feel like with the trajectory of the men in this book so far, they might take all of their evidence to them and they just sweep it under and then they have to live normal lives. Or they get the men on their side and then James Harris has to flee. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I could see it going like a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, jumping 3 years, anything could happen. So, would there be anything that would be disappointing if something happens in the next 60-ish pages? Or are we just ready to read?
Ready to read.
Ready to read. All right.
You know, something else creepy is gonna happen. You just
Yeah,
know
it's
it.
not over.
Don't read in the dark.
Don't
Yep.
read in the dark. I mean, it is Halloween next week, so maybe read in the dark. I don't know.
Isn't it?
It is. I think Tuesday is
Monday
Halloween.
or Tuesday, yeah.
Monday.
Mhm.
Is it Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it is.
Monday.
Dang.
Candy.
All right, so for next week, so we're gonna read through the psycho section, and so we're gonna land, I would say, at we're gonna read chapter 26, not chapter 27. So it's
Okay.
in the hardcovers. It's gonna be page 265 is what we're gonna end on.
Okay.
And just as a generic reminder, we're reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and it's been a wild ride, and I can't imagine it's gonna get any less wild. um, as usual, I would like to thank Heart Illustrations for joining us this week and being able to join
Glad
us
I
this week
yeah.
too.
Glad I finally made it. Thanks for switching over to Zoom for
Right.
today.
You can find all of her fun Instagram art, especially where she's at right now, below in our links and in general. Did you want to plug anything that you're doing or?
Oh, I mean, yeah, if you check out my Instagram, I'm doing an art residency right now. It ends on the 30th though, so we're like at the end here. But
Aw.
yeah, I know I'm sad, but I've been doing an art residency out in Western Montana and posting a lot of art and stuff. And yeah,
Well, there
it's
you
been
go.
fun.
And then,
But
of
I've been
course,
gone because there's been no internet.
right. And then, of course, thank you to Book Club Mom for joining us every week so far.
Keeping us going.
Keeping us going. and of course, thank you to Decal for being able to join us this week in her busy schedule this past month. So it's been nice to have us all here for this book,
Yes.
especially with everything going on. So yes, round of applause.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can find all of us on our lovely little Discord page, and you can, talk to us there if you have any thoughts about the books or have any other comments that you want thrown into our stream. Per usual, you can always find our streams, hopefully, because the last couple ones, things have been kind of messing up with the audio, but this one should be fine, I'm hoping. You'll be able to find our stream on YouTube on Saturday. And of course, with that, I'd like to thank Botsy, who is our behind the scenes IT god, I guess. and he usually likes to stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I think, or he's trying to. I usually stream with him on Fridays. We're playing video games, so. But go ahead and read, and we'll see you all next week. I can't wait to see what happens. Thank you for everyone who's joining us now or joining us in the future watching the YouTube. And we'll see you next week. Have a great night.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.